G'day and welcome to Insights and Storytellings with me, Moon Willow. As always, it's a real honour and privilege to have you joining me and contributing your energies to these stories. I don't know about you, but for the past day or two, I feel like I'm a bit like I'm sleepwalking. And I've had enough sleep, I think, that it can never be really that clear, I guess, as to whether we have enough sleep or not. On one level, I feel like I have, and then on another, I don't feel like there'll ever be enough sleep to achieve. And then just as I was sitting down to do this, I looked outside my window and there is the most beautiful full moon that I can see through my window, and it's a beautiful orangey colour, although saying that now it's gone sort of more of a whiter coloration, so it's almost, I was a little upset earlier on tonight because I couldn't see her, and now just looking out the window, she's really there and very present. And last night she was hidden away, and the night before I could see her again. So with my name, I really love the moon, and really enjoy watching her travel through the sky, but I guess I don't utilize her energy or honor her as much as I perhaps should, and that was one of the things I was thinking about last night, was looking back as to the different processes. It's probably not the right word, but I had developed sort of processes. I'm going to use processes because I can't think of any other words at the moment. To start my days, I would start the day grounding twice a day and call to the different directions and really feel embodied in a particular practice. And then I've noticed sort of pretty much for the past couple of months, but more over the past, since the last full moon, it's almost like I have inadvertently put those practices down. I still have, I still connect to the earth on a regular basis, and I put my shieldings up and my protections around my house and myself, but they seem to be a bit less. They're not as involved as they were, and I'm guessing that doesn't really diminish the power of them, really, but it's almost like I'm finding difficulty finding time for them. And I guess there's a meme on that I look at Facebook a lot, in case you haven't picked up on this. And one of the memes I've seen over the years was around meditation, that if you don't have time to meditate for half an hour, then you need to meditate for an hour. And I think that that's sort of some of what the energy is saying to me at the moment, is that not to neglect that side, that yes, things seem a struggle and it's hard to keep your vibration up, and it's almost like sometimes it takes all the energy to stay present and cope with the world around us and participate as much as possible or as little as possible in day-to-day life, and it's very difficult to navigate. I'm finding anyway, it's very difficult to navigate at the moment and remain sane. Although the jury's probably out as to how sane I actually am in this world, and that's fine. But it's almost like I've got caught up in going into work, keeping my head down, trying to follow the rules as much as possible without losing my sovereignty or my free will, or who I am through all of this. And it's very difficult not to get stressed about paying bills and making sure that I eat, things like that, day-to-day life stuff. But it's also crucial, I feel, to recognize that we also have to nurture our souls and our spirituality. And I do that a lot. And I in speaking now, I recognize that I may not be doing the practices so much at home, but I still, I just do them in a different way. And it is good to change them, but it's also good to notice when some of them have disappeared. And why have they disappeared? What is it about it? Are we avoiding certain parts of our lives or ourselves by not practicing in that way? And I can recognize that as I increase my walks around the reserve, that is me connecting and meditating, doing a walking meditation through that period of time. But it's also important to honor the other ones in speaking to the four directions and really connecting with the archangels and my higher self, so that I am living my life in the most complete way I can, I guess. One of the other things that I have truly noticed in the past couple of months that I used to be, and I don't know whether, I know I've mentioned it, but I don't know whether it's one that's actually made it on an upload, is I used to do a lot of journal writing. And I have only really written in my journal for the past couple of months, 3 times, 4 times at the most, and only once really quite intensely. And I find that curious. I know sort of 20, 30 years ago, I really struggled writing stuff down because I was worried that it'd be held against me. That it was almost like writing something down turns it into putting it into rock form almost, and that you're going to be tied to that belief system or opinion because it's written there, as opposed to using words and voice, because that can grow and change as we're speaking. And it's not fixed. But I've equally noticed with writing that actually it helps get it out, so you can actually see where you're sat at that moment, and you can actually then pull the pages out and burn them, but also recognizing that we do change, and it's constant growth, and that's the way it should be. And just because you held an opinion sort of 20, 30 years ago, or even yesterday, doesn't mean as more information comes in that you're not able to change your mind or update it or upgrade it or weave in more information, as it were. So writing down shouldn't become problematic. It's the belief we give it. It's the credence we give it, and that's interesting. I find that it's like, why is it that that's there? Why? What is it, or where did that information come from? Where did that thought come from? That if it's written down, then it's set in stone. And I know that it is one that I've sort of looked at previously in my life, and I haven't really come up with any particular answers, except that I know that it's a lot more freeing being able to write things down than keep them within, so that I can actually look at it a little bit more dispassionately, without sort of getting caught up in the story, that I can actually read it as an observer. So I find it interesting that I haven't been writing as much recently, or following my practices quite as intensely or rigidly. And I guess that's the key, is going more with the flow, that it's okay not to follow things rigidly, because you can't go with the flow if you have religious practices at the same time. It sort of contradicts each other. But just being mindful of those things that we used to get a lot of comfort from, get a lot of support from, and are we still using them? Or have they dropped by the wayside without us really seeing that or acknowledging that? And why is that? Is that a good thing, or is it a way to avoid ourselves? It's always asking those sort of questions along the way, so that we can be fully present with ourselves and what's going off around us at the same time. So I'm going to see which crystal comes out now within this, and see whether there is any. So we've gone back to the sacral and creativity. So that sort of follows with it, is just looking at the things that how we used to create space for ourselves. How did we used to listen to ourselves? How do we create space to actually be present? Or is it a case of just being present all the time? How are we creating blocks as well? So in regards to my journal writing, I know that I can actually see things more clearly through writing, and it's a way of getting it out of me. So is it a block that I'm creating by not writing? Or is it that at the moment I am finding doing this and communicating with people a sufficient way to clear my thoughts and blockages? Because it may be at the moment that if I sat and did journal writing, that I would avoid being present. Or I could be present in another way that I'm not aware of. So, and it's a bit like sort of calling to the four directions, that that may have become too ritualistic, and it's almost becomes sort of like just words without any meaning, or thoughts without any meaning, if you do it on a regular basis. Whereas if you do it when you feel that you're setting something up specifically, then it has more potency sometimes. But recognizing that, is it that you're just stopping from looking after yourself spiritually? Or is it that something else has come in that is more powerful at the moment? That walking around the reserve and being fully present and connecting with the wildlife is actually more beneficial than doing the perfunctory four corners above and below, because that's what's expected. What are the stories behind that? What are we creating around that? How are we creating blocks or openings? So that's what I'm getting from the carnelian today, and the sacral space, and looking at the bits that we may have missed. How difficult is it to move through this? How difficult is it to create? How much lightness is that giving, or is it becoming a chore? So really feeling into our sacral space and the emotions that are there, and how are we flowing through them. So I'm going to shuffle the cards and see what cards sort of come in to help direct this particular story. I'm going to take, no, I'm going to, there was 4 at that moment. I suppose I could have done 4. Go with that one. I can't see them. I just have a feel that that's, I wanted to hear come through. So I got the fox and the ring and 4-leaf clover. That clover's been coming out a lot recently. Okay, so from the clover, what I'm getting is that even though oftentimes at the moment it's feeling really dark at times and frustrating at the rules, and not, for all intents and purposes, not been able to live our lives in the manner that we would like to be able to live them because of all these restrictions that are put on by other people. But the clover indicates to me that if we hold on to our true selves and manage to negotiate through the current situation as fully and authentically as we possibly can, that we hold on to our identity and are able to move forward to a time and space that is nurturing and whole and supportive, and will continue to provide us with abundance on all levels. But we help to create that. That's why it's coming in at the moment with the carnelian. So the fox is around sly and cunning, but I really love foxes. I truly do. And unfortunately, the last one I saw was no longer with us. But that's a different story. So foxes, okay, so it is about being cunning, but it's being cunning to hold our truth and help continue to create a space that we feel comfortable living in. And the cunningness is around not lying, but just, I suppose in a way, I've got this image of just having our heads down and just moving slowly, gracefully, fluidly forward in a manner that is actually right and authentic to ourselves. And negotiating tricky situations without feeling pressurized into changing our core belief. But as I say, remaining true and being really open to ourselves. But it's also, okay, so some of this is in regards to the full moon and using the rays to actually continue to pull back the veils. Having a look within our sacral space and see how we are contributing to creating the world that we're living in at the moment, and seeing whether we are contributing to it or whether, and I mean that from an energetic level, are we buying into deception? Are we allowing ourselves to be blinded? Or are we prepared to open our eyes and actually look at what's happening around us? But recognizing that entering into certain debates and conversations may not get us anywhere. but not complying or becoming complicit by actually speaking an untruth to stay under the radar, but just try and hold our true authentic self and continue to create a world and environment you would like to live in. I know this is sounding confused, but it feels really confused. It feels really confusing. And that, for me, as well, is part of what the fox is. That a lot of the deception is confusion. And it's like a lot of the information coming out at the moment is half-truths. And it's like any statistics can be altered or misrepresented if you're only given partial information. And I mean that from all sides. So be very careful and cautious about what you're reading or seeing or perceiving, and dig a little deeper and try and work out what's hiding behind it. So going into the ring. So going into the ring and partnership. Realistically, the only true partnerships in a lot of ways is the partnership we have with ourselves, the partnership we have with our soul, the partnership we have with Source, the partnership we have with Earth underneath our feet. That real, authentic clarity. And coming back to the other side of the sacral chakra is really trusting our guts and noticing, as I've said in the past, noticing the emotional responses we have around us. And if we have relationships or partnerships externally, or even with ourselves, is there conditions attached? Because invariably we do add conditions without realizing it. And are we preventing ourselves from being truly authentic internally and externally? Because we're worried that someone might misjudge us or perceive us in a bad light. But who says that light is bad? It feels really sticky at the moment and really unclear. And it is, for me, it's really hard to see clearly at the moment. And that some of the veils are being taken back and more things are coming to light, but those things that are coming to light are difficult to take on board, are difficult to accept without going into that cognitive dissonance. So again, it's really having that internal partnership and having a look in your sacral space, having a look at your emotional responses to things, noticing whether you've turned into the fox, whether you've turned into someone who's cunning to fit with society, or where is it that you're hiding from your authentic self? Are you worried or struggling to have that true partnership with yourself and consequently with people around you? Because it's difficult at the moment to really feel into our authenticity, because we are being bombarded. I feel that we're being bombarded even more at the moment from all sorts of different energies, from sort of media, from other places, from our friends, from our families, from our colleagues. There is a lot of bombardment at the moment, and there's misinformation or half information or people's perception of information. And it's really hard to determine how we can feel about that. So for me, it is really about coming back within, really taking time doing that meditation that I was saying, that if you don't feel like you can meditate, if you don't feel that it's enough time to meditate for half an hour, then meditate for longer. It's almost like there has been an increase externally for us to become more concerned about keeping a roof over our heads, for navigating the world at the moment, whether we're going to travel again, whether we are able to have some semblance of freedom back. It's like, if you don't follow the rules, then you're not going to be able to live fully and freely. And it's hard. It feels really hard to hold on to our internal belief system, to try and have as much information as possible to fully inform us, so that we can actually make honest decisions. But if you keep being overwhelmed, if you keep being told that your thought process is wrong, or you've got the wrong end of the stick, etc., that you should be complying, and by not complying you're doing it all wrong, all of that, it's hard to remain or feel who you are within. So it really is necessary and important to take that step back, to really have a look in our sacral space and watch the emotional responses to things going on around us. Having a look behind that and see what information might be hiding from us. And then hold the parts that feel really authentic and true. What brings you joy, what brings about that magical spark, that creativity, that way of moving forward. And using that to create a comfortable space to live and breathe in, so that that magic can continue to occur. I'm hoping this makes sense. I don't know, I might have lost myself along the way, more than likely. But in really having that partnership with ourselves, especially from a creative space of our sacral, really listening to the emotions. Are we trying to create something that numbs us out? Or is it so that we can actually bring joy or walk in a manner that we feel aligned and at peace with ourselves over? And does it feel like it's matching up with our soul mission? Does it feel like it's matching up with our internal belief systems? Do we feel aligned with Earth, ourselves, and Source above? Or are we dodging and diving too much because we can't tell what's right or what's wrong, what's up, what's down? And it feels like that it is all over the place like that. So really trying to find our true north, trying to find our true centre, really feel connected and partnered with ourselves. And I feel that that's where the clover comes in. That every time we hit that alignment, every time we feel that kindred partnership within, we will notice it without and have those connections with people around us. We will end up bringing them more into our sphere. And that will help create joy and good luck and future positivity, I'm hoping. So anyway, I hope that's resonating for some of you out there, and I'm hoping that it is actually making sense. I'm going to see which sound comes through for us today. And create a healing sound. Thank you very much for joining me. As I say, I do hope that this is making sense to some of you out there. I can't say that it made a lot of sense to me along the way. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. It felt a little bit confused. But I feel that that is also representative of the energies at the moment, is this sort of confused befuddlement, waiting for clarity, waiting for the full moon energy to clear through a level of understanding so that we can connect with ourselves and then go forward into a brighter, lighter life. And I do feel it's possible. I do feel it's achievable. I just don't know when. So it's holding on to the ways that we can create that space for us to live in the here and now, and really find joy wherever we can. So take care of yourselves. I do not know when I'll be back on doing another one of these. But in the meantime, as I say, take care. Love you all. Bye for now.